Welcome to the Tom Matt Show. You are walking through the front door of the refirement zone. And now, your host, Tom Matt.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of what we lovingly like to call the Tom Matt Show. Thank you to Sandy for introducing the episode. Last week, Craig was here. Craig Stiles, Ameriprise Financial, called that one the fiduciary. Why do you want to have a fiduciary in your life? Listen to that episode, you'll know why. Because Craig is, by legal standards, money, attorneys, all of the people that you need to have like trust in, a fiduciary is like a key component to that trust value. So that's that last week, and that was Craig Stiles. As you know, he is a kingpin and one of the sponsors of the program. Love him so much. Today, Bill Beekman. Guys had more career. Talk about refirement, everybody. Refirement zone. This guy, I must have had him in mind when we're coming up with the concept and the branding of the refirement zone, because Bill Beekman, calling this one Mr. Sparty, you'll see why in a second. This guy has had more careers at MSU than anyone at very high levels. Bill Beekman is the Vice President for Strategic Initiatives at Michigan State University now. In that role, he leads the implementation of the university's strategic plan, which, believe me, we have meetings, lunches, talks, chats. I've known Bill for a long time. There's a lot of strategic things that go on at a big university like Michigan State, Big Ten. You need people like Bill. He serves as a senior advisor to the president. As an MSU alumnus, and we're going to talk about this, Bill has served at the university since 1995, holding 5 unique positions. Now, check this out, everybody. I'm just going to do this one paragraph of his long bio, because his bio is very, very extensive. He has holding 5 unique positions in the president's cabinet. Ready for this? More than any other individual in the university's history. That's why we're calling this one Mr. Sparty, including, in addition to his current role, which is Vice President of Strategic Initiatives, as I just said, acting president. Check this out. Check these off, everybody. Acting president. This is almost comical. Vice President and Secretary of the Board of Trustees, Vice President and Director of Intercollegiate Athletics, which means he was AD, the kingpin, and Executive Director for the MSU Alumni Association. Just 5 different jobs that, one of those things. He also has served as Senior Consultant to the Provost and the Vice President for Finance and Operations, Assistant Dean for Planning and Finance in the College of Human Medicine, and Acting Chief Executive Officer of the University Medical Practice and Ancillary Medical Operations. And he is a consultant for other issues that we're trying to figure out at the university. Well, we just had a chat yesterday about some of these issues, and we're working on it. We're trying, and we're working really hard. I want to welcome to the radio program for his first time, my buddy, Mr. Sparty himself, Bill Beekman. Bill, thank you so much for taking the time. You're so busy. I know you, but gosh, what a life, man.
No, happy to join you, Tom. Very excited to be here.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so the first segment is all about this is your life. All right, this is the way we always do it. It's like tell everybody about you, your family. We're going to talk about your academic career and your professional career at Michigan State. But this portion of this segment of the show, just talk about your family, your parents, your third generation Sparty. Please go right ahead.
So yeah, I was born in Sparrow Hospital, and which is within almost walking distance of my office here on campus, and never got very far away. My parents met at Groesbeck Golf Course in Lansing, and my dad went to Eastern High School. My mom went to East Lansing High School. They met at Groesbeck when they were 16 years old. And are obviously lifelong residents of Greater Lansing. Both of their parents lived most of their lives here, and I go back 5-6 generations in Greater Lansing in one sort of branch of my family tree or another. But I grew up in downtown Lansing. You can figure out who the Lansing folks are you're talking to when you ask them if they know where the Green Door is, and I grew up about 4 blocks behind the Green Door, and went to high school out in Okemos. We moved out there eventually, and then came to Michigan State, and in my freshman year I lived in 6 North Case Hall, and also living in 6 North Case Hall that year was my future wife, Cindy. And so we met our freshman year at Michigan State. She would have little to do with me until actually after we graduated. I was in law school at Wayne State in Detroit. She had moved back home to Grand Rapids, where she's from. And then she decided it was okay for me to come and visit. So I burned a path up and down I-96 for several years until she agreed that she'd marry me. And so we've been married. This April will be 31 years.
Oh, congratulations.
And we have 3 children. Our oldest child, Katie, is a PhD student at Vanderbilt. And our middle child, Nick, an MSU alum of the College of Social Science in James Madison College. And he is a IT consultant guy in Chicago. And then our youngest is a sophomore at Michigan State, also in the College of Social Science and the College of Natural Science. And he's loving his MSU experience. And so we've got 3 kids, all of whom are passionate MSU supporters. And that makes for a happy household. My wife is our sort of cheerleader in chief. She's the probably the biggest sports fan of the 5 of us, and so it's been a great place in the greater Lansing community to call home, to raise a family, and all in the shadow of the university.
What's your youngest son's name, Bill?
Will.
Bill? Okay.
Will.
Will. Okay, got it. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for that one. So again. So the generational links continue. So you started, when I came to your office recently, you showed me a picture of, I believe it was your grandfather at the Quonset huts. Can you tell that quick story, please? We got a couple minutes to go before, just to set the kind of the temperature of how deep your roots go. I mean, 5 to 6 generations in Lansing, but your grandfather.
Yeah. So my grandfather is a really interesting guy. My dad's dad. His name was Marvin Beekman, and he grew up with a stutter, and he became a school teacher. Graduated from Western Michigan and became an elementary school teacher, which was quite rare at the time. And because he was a male elementary school teacher, he got sort of what you might have classified as all the problem kids back in the 40s in that era, and so he became one of the state's first special education teachers. And as he grew in his career, he did a lot of research on special education. And at one point, he got a federal grant to determine whether people stutter, whether a stutter goes away when you're doing things like filming a TV show. And so they created a TV show. He was a woodworker. And so it was an early version of kind of like you see on HGTV or those kinds of things. And it was called The Handyman After 5. And he explained how to fix things around your house and tile your bathroom and all those kinds of things. And I have this great picture that was gifted to me by the team at WKAR that shows my grandfather sort of holding some pieces of wood together on the set with old WKAR cameras from the probably the mid to late 50s, and it was filmed in a Quonset hut, which was the original WKAR studio, and the location that's currently the Breslin Center. And there were many Quonset huts there that held returning GIs from the after World War II. But also it housed WKAR, the police department, several other things. So yeah, it's a really cool picture.
Hold that thought, because this is where we're going, everybody. Bill Beekman, Mr. Sparty, is our guest today. This is the kind of stuff we're going to do. We're going to have stories galore about historical perspective, current perspective. You know, we do positive for the university because there's plenty of people out there that love to bag on the university and put negative out there. And we don't do that here because there's too much good that doesn't get enough good pub, and we've got one today. Mr. Bill Beekman, my buddy, Mr. Sparty. This is the Tom Matt Show.
Welcome to the Tom Matt Show.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. This week's episode. Calling this one Mr. Sparty with my pal Bill Beekman. Known Bill for a long time. Used to see him at the gym all the time. He's a treadmill guy getting on that thing. Real quiet, just doing his thing. That's the kind of people I like at the gym. They just kind of come in, they do their thing. They don't bother people. They just do it, and they're very consistent. This segment of the Tom Matt Show is sponsored by Craig. Last week's guest talked about the fiduciary. Was the name of last week's episode. Craig Stiles, full disclosure, is our Ameriprise financial advisor. He has every penny of our retirement zone savings from the university and from McLaren Health. He handles all of that through Ameriprise Financial because he's the creator of Decideri Analytics, his proprietary algorithm that puts him over the top where we are making light of weighted decisions. That is his tagline. Decideri is a great program. And if you want more information on that, you can go listen to some of the podcasts with Craig because we talk about it all the time because it's what makes him different. With the right financial advisor, life can be brilliant. Call Craig, 1-800-528-1355. Local number is 517-483-4893. His email is craig.stiles@ampf.com. His offices are located at 2651 Coolidge Road, Suite 103, East Lansing, Michigan, 48823. Don't let the East Lansing address shy anybody away, scare anybody away. Oh, East, too far. You're listening to the podcast and you're in Texas or Florida or California or wherever. Ameriprise is a huge company and they're all over the place. So if you want a financial advisor to be vetted, Craig would do that for you. No problem. You reach out to me, reach out to him, however you want to do it. Stations that have carried us do carry us. Of course, we're on the Michigan Talk Network. You know, they're the flagship of the Midwest, WJIM being the flagship station of that syndication, 1240 AM in Lansing, carrying us all the time and weekends all over the place. WGHN 92.1 in Grand Haven, thanks to Will Team and Wendy Hart for putting us on. That's the first station to ever carry us on broadcast radio many years ago. And I'm so proud to continue to say that we love them so much because Will Teeman's the best, and so is Wendy. WJRW 1340 in Grand Rapids carried us for many, many years. WKLQ 1490 Muskegon, part of the Michigan Talk Network. WYPV as well as part of the Michigan Talk Network, FM 94.5 in Mackinac City. And, of course, our PBS affiliate at Michigan State University, of course, Big Green Machine of AM 870, WKAR News Talk, and, of course, simulcast at 5 o'clock on Sundays on 102.3 FM, or you can get the stream there. And, again, thank you to Stephen Ivy Gruber for putting us on the Michigan Talk Network and having the faith in us. Today, Mr. Sparty's here, Bill Beekman, my buddy. Bill is a JD and an MBA, and he's just a smart dude. Been around, got 5-6 different key positions at the university. Let's just start at the beginning. You just talked about your parents' meeting at Groesbeck. This guy has got more roots in Lansing and East Lansing than anybody else. So you start you go to Okemos High School, and you're starting out there at Michigan State. You meet your wife. She finally gives you the privilege of marrying her many years later after you've burned up some mileage going back and forth from law school. What has changed now, Bill, as an undergrad? Let's start with an undergrad, and then we'll just move into your jobs. But what has changed in your perspective as an administrator at the institution at a very high level? What would you like the parents to know so they can navigate this very complex situation that's out there with higher education? Please give us some of your input.
Yeah, I think that the university has changed. It's changed a lot since I graduated in 1989. And it's as a person who spends every day on campus, things come and go, and buildings come, and we maybe occasionally take a building down. We build programs, develop colleges, and kind of in the way that. If you see somebody every day, you see your child every day, you don't notice kind of how they grow, but you see somebody else's kid after a year and you're like, oh my goodness, how much they've grown. And I'm always amazed at friends that come back that maybe haven't been on campus for 10 years that are just blown away by how much the place has grown and developed, and things that kind of when you're here every day, you tend to sort of forget about because you're just around. But certainly since I was a student, the place has really exploded. In terms of offerings and programs, I think the sophistication of what it means to come to higher ed institution I think the value of an MSU degree continues to rise every year. And, and really we're an extraordinarily comprehensive place. And I think the beauty of Michigan State is that there are few things we don't offer. We don't have an architecture school, for example. There are a handful of things that we just don't do. But by golly, just about anything you're interested in, you can find at MSU. And I think, I was just earlier today meeting with a couple of deans, and one of the things we were discussing was collaboration across colleges. And at MSU, the barriers, the walls, the silos are really very, very low. And students that want to double major or take classes across colleges, it's very easy to do. Our faculty, we recruited two highly regarded faculty about 7 years ago, one from Harvard, one from Stanford, both biomedical researchers. And they came to MSU from probably two of the most prestigious places on the planet for biomedical research. But they came here because they saw opportunities to collaborate with others in a place where there were very few barriers. So when you're doing biomedical research and you can walk into the engineering building and talk to engineers about how things work, you can go over to a place like James Madison or the College of Social Science and talk about the policy implications of expanding a new drug into a new set of classifications for treatment, and what are the policy implications, the legal implications, the liability issues, all of those kinds of things that the social scientists and political scientists think about. And those barriers really are very seamless here at MSU. So academic programs, students can study all kinds of different things with different perspectives. And what's equally important is that the faculty can do research across those boundaries. And so it really is an extraordinary place. And I think one of the things I tell young people coming to MSU is that you have to take advantage of the big place and the small place and find your home, find your niche, but take advantage of all those things that the university has to offer. It's the big and the small that make MSU great.
I like that a lot. And I'm gonna carry this through to break here, Bill, because we're coming up on it. Mr. Sparty's here, Bill Beekman. It's a big place and a little place. If you're interested, if you are an alumni, if you are legacy, whatever, if you're just interested in Michigan State, you have grandchildren that may perhaps be thinking about coming to school here, like we're trying to get ours to think about doing. Listening to a guy like a Bill Beekman with our Spartan sagas, telling you the truth of what we do and our mission and our passion for helping the institution get better. We need good students. We need good parents. We need good grandparents, everybody. Once you become a Spartan, you are a Spartan for life. I taught the Spartan experience for 8 years at Michigan State while I was still, fully doing my thing out there before retirement. And it's just when you teach something like that to people over all those years, just like Bill's done with all his long career, you just become so indoctrinated. It's your life. Bill Beekman's here, Mr. Sparty. This is the Tom Mann Show.
Thank you again to our Segment 2 sponsor, Craig Stiles of Ameriprise Financial. For more information on services provided by Craig, please visit ameripriseadvisors.com/craig.stiles or by calling 517-483-4893. You're tuned in to The Tom Mann Show.
Welcome to the Tom Mann Show.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Tom Mann Show. Our next sponsor, third segment sponsors, I misspoke there, Brock Fletcher, selling team of Keller Williams. Remember, again, full disclosure with Brock, we utilize the heck out of our sponsors because that's why they're sponsors, because we know them so well. Brock, Craig. Brock and the selling team of Keller Williams Realty helped us sell Big House Holt. You guys have heard me tell this story 100 times. I'm not going to go through it again, but tell you what, he was spot on. He knew exactly what he was talking about, and it was painful. But we got through it because we had Brock, and Mike Dedman helping us. Please call Brock today, 517-853-6408. 517-303-3262 is his cell phone. And that's the number you really want to keep. So that's the one, 517-303-3262, or go online to kwsellingteam.com. And remember, everybody, you can go to the bottom of our homepage, tommattshow.com. At the bottom there is where all of our sponsors are. You can click right on through if you want to go that route too. It's pretty straightforward. Sell your home without hassles. Get a good team behind you. Again, Keller Williams, if you're hearing this and you're in California, like I said, or you're in Guatemala or wherever on the internet, there's Keller Williams offices all over the United States, everywhere. And they're big. Gary Keller's a great, he built a great company over there, and they really know how to help their people. That's why you want to go with the selling team of Keller Williams Realty, because they helped us sell our house. They helped us buy Little House Lansing, where we're recording this, and they take good care of people. And the other thing, too, especially since we're talking to Mr. Sparty today, Brock brings in many, many, many interns from Michigan State University, from the athletic department and other students, to help them get some professional experience. And we have interviewed several of the athletes. Matter of fact, we got one coming up here in a little while with a player, former MSU player, who's a professional athlete now, playing in the NFL. And that was a fun show, and you'll check that one out here coming up soon. So please check out Brock Fletcher. He is our reality of real estate expert. He's like 20 shows on our website. You can go check them all out, get your questions answered, and it doesn't cost you anything. Bill Beekman's our guest today, Mr. Sparty, telling us stories about his career, life, and times at MSU, giving the first snapshot of his life and how the university has changed. It just continues to change and grow and morph, and it's like the Big Ten and everything. Bill, could you have ever imagined? I told you we're going to go in order with your jobs, but I want to jump first to, because athletics is always a big thing. You were AD for a while, and amongst your other 5 administrative big jobs. Could you ever have imagined in your time throughout all of your jobs, but especially as athletic director at Michigan State, the changes that have occurred in the last few years?
Yeah, it has been extraordinary. And the sort of the chaos that currently exists with really the lack of rules governing payment of players, NIL, name, image, likeness is what that stands for, are unprecedented in the history of athletics and college athletics. And I think it will be interesting to see how it sorts itself out over the next handful of years, particularly with football and men's basketball, which, in our athletic department, football would generate, generally speaking, about 80% of the revenue. Basketball would generate men's basketball, maybe 15% of the revenue. Hockey, in a very good year, like the year we're having now, would break even and maybe make a little money. And then the revenue that you take from football and men's basketball, you'd essentially spend to fund all of your other operations, activities, and sports. And so those two high revenue generating sports really are extremely important to any athletic department. And in our case at Michigan State, one of the most interesting aspects of our department is we're one of about 20 in the country that are fully self-sufficient. So tuition dollars, revenue, funds that we get through our state appropriation, none of that goes to the athletic department. The department it's able to spend the money that it brings in through TV revenue, tickets, sponsorships, those kinds of things. So it really is a closed loop. And I've always liked that aspect of athletics because it keeps the tuition going to our educational mission, our state appropriation going to our educational mission, and athletics funds itself. But that does make it it's a business, and it's increasingly a challenging environment as the numbers that we're paying players and coaches continue to go up and up and up.
Can they sustain this, Bill? I mean, it's a matter of it's well documented that the athletic department has run a small deficit the last couple of years, and now they have all this NIL stuff and they're paying players. And I mean, you got to be so creative with some of the revenue generation stuff. It's just insane. I mean, when you say chaos, I say, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, what are they going to, how do you manage a business like this?
Well, it's really hard. And there used to be some boundaries around these things. And as those have evaporated, it just gets harder and harder. And yeah, I'm not sure anybody that can predict the future they're either naive or they're telling you something that isn't true. I'm not sure anybody could tell you exactly where this is headed, but at some level, decisions will have to be made, and because the funding for these things isn't unlimited, and so athletic directors will have to make decisions. Universities will have to make decisions about what sports they prioritize. Even if you have the sport, if your golf team can offer 4 scholarships and mine can offer 5, you're at a competitive disadvantage. And yet people are going to have to begin to pick and choose and make some of those choices unless caps are put on these numbers in some way. But those are going to be very, very hard choices. And there will be winners and losers in ways that may be unprecedented unless the federal government steps in with legislation or the NCAA and the schools come to some agreement. But even with the NCAA, things have gotten beyond their control with the ongoing litigation and national class action lawsuits that have occurred. So it's an unpredictable environment. The one truism seems to be that things get more and more and more expensive. And it simply will reach a breaking point at some point where athletic directors are going to have to make pretty tough decisions.
It's absolutely a fact. I mean, it's going to happen. Bill Beekman's our guest today, everybody, talking Mr. Sparty. All right, here's where we're going to go for the rest of the show, everybody. Coming up close on break here. Bill, we'll talk about, you as vice president, secretary of the board of trustees. Set that up real quick, because when we come back, we'll start with that one. What is that? Give me a minute synopsis of that, and then we'll expand that when we come back out of break. Vice President and Secretary of the Board of Trustees. What does that mean?
Well, what that role is I really, if you picture a triangle, and one part of the triangle, one angle is the president, one is the vice presidents, and the third is the university's board of trustees. You sort of sit in the middle of that triangle and try and make sure that everyone's coordinated, communicating on the same page, that you're taking the work that the vice presidents do, making sure that the board understands that, making sure that it all works with the president's agenda. So you're sort of this glue person in the middle of 3 pretty complex sets of people.
That sounds like a job that probably doesn't pay enough. I mean, all of those people that you have to deal with. I'm going to take this through to break here, Bill. Bill Beekman's here is our guest today, everybody. Mr. Sparty, having a job as the vice president of the secretary of the board of trustees, and I'm going to pick Bill's brain a little bit on some stories about just things as acting as the giant referee in the middle of his triangle analogies he just gave us. He's the referee. He's got red flags. He's got yellow flags. He got stop signs. He's got maylocks. He's got everything in his pocket, trying to keep everybody on the same page at the university. That's Bill Beekman, and that's why we call him Mr. Sparty. You're listening to The Tom Mitch Show.
Thank you again to Brock Fletcher, real estate agent at the selling team with Keller Williams Realty. For more information on services provided by Brock, please call his personal cell phone at 517-303-3262 or by emailing Brock at kwsellingteam.com. This is The Tom Matt Show.
Welcome to The Tom Matt Show.
Welcome back, everybody. Tom Matt Show. Mr. Sparty, love it. Love talking the big green machine because I love Michigan State so much. I mean, it's just like, even when you refire from the university, as I say, and I did not, like one person asked me at a local store one time, you got fired? I'm like, no, I did not get fired. I am refired. I am retired. I am still doing whatever I'm going to do. I like being a free agent. I might pick up some extra side work here and there because you never really leave the university. I mean, I'm out there almost every day doing something. So Mr. Sparty's here, Bill Beekman. Bill, how would you like people to connect with you? What phone numbers, emails, whatever you like?
Well, my email is just my last name, Beekman, Beekman at msu.edu. And stand ready to answer any questions or be of help to people as they navigate the terrain that is Michigan State University. But our website is msu.edu, and the university is an extraordinary place, both for students, researchers, and people. Are many offerings to the community, whether it's things people are familiar with, like the Wharton Center or our athletic programs. But the planetarium runs programs on a weekly basis that are really quite spectacular. So there are so many avenues within which to encounter the university and experience the university. Our residence halls offer dining to the public. Please get on our website at msu.edu, and questions can be directed to me at beekman@msu.edu. And I just hope, Tom, that your listeners find a way, whether they're near and can come on campus or far and can take advantage of things remotely, to experience the great place that is Michigan State University.
Absolutely is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. Are you aware, Bill, of there's a lot of studies out there with refirement, with people, the OGs, as the young people call it. I just learned that term today, OG. That's us old people. No offense to us. I mean, it was totally fine. But with the older generations, boomers and maybe some older Gen Xers, moving closer to universities because of everything you just said, let's kind of pitch that, because I know Vinny Gore and I are very close friends, as you are as well. And we've talked about this concept, and he has talked about this concept. And it's just living in the Lansing, mid-Michigan area, being close to Michigan State University is a wonderful, wonderful place, because of the cost of living isn't bad. There's so much to do. You've got the state of Michigan. You've got all kinds of stuff. Please talk about that, Bill. I'm sure you're aware of all that.
No, Tom, you're absolutely right. And, it's one of the reasons that I've enjoyed working at the university and stay at the university. The opportunity to interact with young people, with our students. Sometimes it's a little unnerving when you discover that something that's a contemporary experience to you, students have never heard of because they're just that much younger. But it's also great fun, getting their perspective on the world, how they see things, how things have evolved. And from my perspective, it keeps you young and engaged and interested in the world. And it's an opportunity to interact with young people. Also, the university is a learning environment. And so, most people are here to be learners of one sort or another. Our faculty are doing research that makes them learners every day. And so, there's a real emphasis and priority on learning and growth. And it is a spectacular environment to live in.
When you count in all of the classes, you could take non-credit classes, all of the athletic events. There's so many free events. There's music. There's all kinds of entertainment at the university. Just walking the campus itself, looking at all the grounds. If you haven't walked our campus, everybody, you don't know what you're missing out on. We have the most, Bill, back me up on this one. Our grounds, especially on North Campus, and you've been around the whole country. Would you put us in the top 5 of all universities in this country as far as the grounds?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. North Campus has that historic old feel that you would think of as a traditional sort of old college, with many of the buildings from the from the university's near the university's founding 1850, 1870 in that era. But you can cross the river and go to the Children's Garden. There's a beautiful rose garden that's not too far from there. The botanical gardens. Just walking around campus. One of the favorite activities from my family, particularly when our kids were growing up, is in the summers to take a sort of quiet Sunday in the summer and go to the dairy store and get ice cream and just walk around campus. And it's a beautiful, just wonderful environment that, yes, if you haven't been, you should come. And it's a great place to be.
It is. Okay, so I'm going to pick your brain on that first job we talked about, because we mentioned the AD thing. We'll talk about that in another bit here. But as vice president of the Secretary Board of Trustees, which you described as, I think of it as you're in the middle of the triangle, as you said. You're the referee for 3 very, very unique people, organizations, whatever you want to call it. do you have some stories? Do you have a story that you'd like to relate? A funny story of how you had to referee something and manage, and it came to a good conclusion. I'm sure you got several.
Oh, God. Yeah. There's so many examples, but, I would say that it's the, in some ways, just sort of the simple things. It's, it's making sure that people are talking with each other and being coordinated and on the same page.
Which is very challenging sometimes.
It is. But, working with the 8 trustees, from my perspective, I learned so much from every trustee I worked with, from Don Nugent, who owned Graceland Fruits up in Frankfort, Michigan, and patented the process for drying cherries. Faylene Owen, who is an extraordinary Democratic fundraiser, I met Governor Blanchard through Faylene and became friends with him, and she was close to the Clintons, and Joel Ferguson, one of my great mentors, just a brilliant man, and an extraordinary person who, I would go over to Joel's office for whatever issue, and people would come in and ask him for help in one way or another, and he'd have a big wad of money in his pocket, and he'd pull it out, and somebody need a new pair of work boots or a little help with their rent, and I used to joke with Joel that he was a one-man social service agency. But each person in their own way was just fascinating to work for. And I guess if I had one really funny story, one of my responsibilities in that role was helping pick commencement speakers. And probably the most fascinating person that we had during my time was Desmond Tutu. And so there was a little bit of controversy over Reverend Tutu coming to speak. And some students were upset about it. And I won't really get into that in too much detail in the weeds, but we scheduled an event at Cole's house, at the president's house, where we invited about 40 students to come and hear him give a brief presentation, and they could ask him anything they wanted. And so at the end of his presentation, he opened it up for questions. And one student asked Reverend Desmond Tutu if he could share something that they couldn't find out about him by researching the internet or something about him that most nobody would know. Well, Desmond Tutu sort of turned his back to the group, pulled up his pant leg, and turned his shoulder and said, "I've got really sexy legs." And the place just erupted in laughter. And you're thinking, did I just hear Desmond Tutu actually say that? And it showed his humanity and his sense of humor and who he was as a person. And it was absolutely delightful.
Oh my God. See, of course you guys know, you've listened to the radio show. We've been doing this 14 seasons now. Everything is unscripted with this show. I mean, Bill has no idea. I mean, we have a couple of little things we might talk about. He had no idea where we're going with it. That's a great story. I mean, even Marvin Beekman would like that story. I think Marvin would really like that story, Bill. We're going to come up on break here, so I'm going to carry this through, everybody. Let me reset. Mr. Sparty's here, Bill Beekman. He has been acting president, which we'll talk about here in a second, vice president, secretary, board of trustees. We've talked about that. He has been the AD, and he's been the executive director of the MSU Alumni Association. You could say that he has been around. He was assistant dean for planning and finance at College of Human Medicine. There's just so many things that he's done. When we come back, we're going to definitely talk about his acting role as president of the university. How was that? I mean, talk about giving him a job. Here, take this job as the referee of secretary of the board. Oh no, let's give you this other job that's even harder. And it's like, but he does it. He always comes through and he fulfills the role. And that's the great thing about Bill. That's why we call him Mr. Sparty. You're listening to The Tom Matt Show.
For more information on the Tom Matt RFZ mentality, please visit our brand new website at www.tommattshow.com. Subscribe to our podcast via your favorite podcast platform. Visit our brand new YouTube channel for consistently motivating messaging. This is The Tom Matt Show.
Welcome to the Tom Matt Show.
Welcome back, everybody. Having so much fun. Love doing this radio program because I learn so much from people, and I love talking to smart people. The thing is you got to surround yourself with smart people. It's just, it has to happen. And when you do that, you become smarter. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I want to be around all the smart people. Bill Beekman, JD, MBA, and all kinds of other things. Mr. Sparty. All right, let's get back into it here. We got a couple more jobs to talk about in your pathway through the university, Mr. Sparty. You were, from the secretary of the board, which is the referee for 3 different entities that must have been just sometimes very interesting. Let's put it that way. You were given the task. Were you given the task? Were you told to take the task? Were you begged to take the task? What happened when you were interim president of Michigan State University? And just go tell everybody the story.
Well, so it was a really horrible, sad time in the life of the university. In the midst of the crisis and the horrible events surrounding Larry Nassar, and President Simon had stepped down. It was like Tuesday or Wednesday evening, fairly late in the evening, had submitted a letter of resignation to the board. And so the next day, a number of board members and I were in the conference room, and the board was discussing, the president has resigned. And they were really of a mindset that they wanted to hire an external acting president, but they didn't know how long that would take. And they needed somebody to sort of fill in the gap. And so I was, as the board secretary, I was sitting with 4 or 5 of our board members and helping them sort of think this issue through. And at one point, as they were debating the strengths and weaknesses of various people, Mitch Lyons, who was on the board at that time, said, well, Bill's our guy. Why don't we just have him do it? And I sort of probably had a deer in the headlights look about me at that moment. And the other board members that were in the room said, oh, yeah, that works. That makes sense. And so then they all looked at me and I said, well, okay. I sort of my mantra is whatever the university asks of me, I'll do my best to do. And so they called a board meeting, and the next day I was voted in as the acting president. It was a fascinating meeting because we had a number of protesters. One guy hopped up onto the top of the table and sat sort of cross-legged on the top of the board table for a couple minutes until he decided to leave. And it was just that kind of a jumbled, crazy time. So after the meeting, and I ended up being acting president for 10 days. Until the board had negotiated a contract and selected former Governor Engler to come in and be the acting president. So it was a short period. My claim to fame during that time is that the basketball team was 3-0. So I may be the only president who was undefeated in basketball for my brief tenure. But after that first meeting of the board, when I was appointed, it's just a very stressful, exhausting day. So our provost at the time was June Hewitt, and our VP for administrative affairs was Satish Udpa, 2 very close friends of mine. And so June, Satish, Bob Noto, our general counsel, and I all decided that we were going to go out for lunch. And we went to my favorite lunch destination, which is Crunchies. And so we're sitting there at Crunchies having our burgers and sort of lamenting the craziness of the times. And as we turned to look at the TV, they had ESPN on. On ESPN, they had a live video footage of our board meeting with this guy jumping on top of the table and me at the end of the table as the acting president. And we all looked at each other and burst out laughing because who'd have thought any of us would be on ESPN ever? And for that, and it was a crazy time. It was a tumultuous time, very hard time for the university. I was glad that I could hopefully play a small role in the healing of the institution. But And Tom, as you well know, Luana was and remains an extraordinary mentor to me, and so very, very sad from my perspective to have her resign. But I was glad to do my small piece for the place, and glad to have tried to help it heal and mend and continue as the extraordinary place that it is.
You were the perfect segue, I guess you could say, the segue between, because my feelings for Luana Simon and Roy Simon, and that's very well known. And I'll say right now that Luana Simon was probably one of the best presidents that Michigan State ever had, ever. And I'm always going to effort to get her on the radio program. They're very, very good friends. And that's all I'm going to say right there, because I'm just glad that you were around to help. And I'm glad that you brought her name up, because I want to say that we love her very much and she's awesome and Roy's awesome. And if I don't stop talking about this stuff, I'll probably get emotional here. So we'll move on, because I want to say you had this gig for 10 days and then the AD job. So what was the timeline between those two? Because it's like, hey, secretary of the board, referee. Oh, by the way, you're going to go do this presidency. Oh, by the way, it's like, man, wearing different hats. What was that timeline for that?
Well, so I didn't know John Engler particularly well. I had worked at the state Senate as a student when he was the majority leader, but we didn't know each other well. And so when John was appointed president, I immediately sat down with him, helped him through some things, sort of, get to know the lay of the land, who's who, what's what. So that he was to take over on a Monday morning. And so the Sunday before that Monday, he called and said, hey, can you come over to the president's house this afternoon? I'd like to meet. And so I, of course, agreed. And so went over, and we were at Cole's house, and it was John Truscott, his trusted PR assistant, who was actually a high school friend of mine, and Carol Viventi. And the four of us were around a table, and I had prepared a list of people for John to consider as athletic director, and the strengths and weaknesses and what my recommendation would be. And John said, hey, I read your materials. They were really, really helpful, but I'd like to go in another direction. I said, oh, well, okay, what's that? And he said, well, would you be willing to do it? Now, Tom, I have to tell you that if I'd have made a list of 100 or 200 people, I wouldn't have still made that list. I ran cross country in high school. I follow athletics as a fan, but it was not something that I aspired to. But yeah, again, when John said that, I said, well, if that's how you think I can be of most value to the university, I'm happy to do it. And yeah, and athletics is a very unique beast, as we've discussed a little bit. On the one hand, on the other hand, it is, it's running a business within the university. And so there are, elements common to my time, running the medical practice, for example. And, there are uniquenesses, and then there are many similarities. So I told John I would do it, and he said, well, don't tell anybody. And so when I had become acting president, I had taken my children out to dinner the night before and said, hey, kids, beware, this is what's up, just so you know. Well, I didn't really have the luxury of doing that when I became athletic director. So they, my son saw it on the ESPN scroll, was how he learned that his dad had become athletic director, which was kind of bizarre. But I did tell my wife and really nobody else until John announced it the next day. And, it was an extraordinary experience. Met some really fascinating people, learned a great business, and hopefully made a difference. But it was that was two shocking experiences in 10 days.
I guess I didn't realize that those were so closely attached. I mean, I kind of remember that, but I'm glad that you told us that story there, Bill. Bill Beekman's our guest today. We're going to come up on run out of time here because we only got a couple minutes to go here. And we didn't get it. We'll definitely have you back to talk more. I'd like to get a takeaway from you, though, about the university. You could talk about Luana. You could talk about whatever you want, but please there's a couple minutes left before we got to wrap this bad boy. And I want to give you time to just sell the university. So please go right ahead.
Well, I've always thought that a university really isn't the buildings or the grounds or the property. Universities are really about people, and the mission of our university is unique in that we were founded in 1855, but we became part of the Morrill Act and the land grant colleges in July of 1862, when President Lincoln signed the Morrill Act. And what that really did was it moved from an environment of only the very wealthy having the opportunity to have a college education to the sort of the what might have then be thought of as the middle class and others having the opportunity to experience a college education. And so, to me, Michigan State is this extraordinary place of opportunity where anybody really can come and grow and learn. And it's been so much of who I am that I just couldn't say anything better about it.
That was so perfectly said. You were listening to Bill Beekman, Mr. Sparty. We will have him back. He's got many, 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 many more stories. Always remember, before you can share love with others, everybody, you must love yourself first. Close the show every time with that. Thanks to Mr. Bill Beekman, Sandy Matt, Craig Stiles, Brock Fletcher. We will talk to you next weekend, everybody. Have a great week. Go out and ignite your life. Remember, the Tom Matt Show is a production of Boomers Rock Media. We want to bring your story to life. Lastly, I want to say thank you so much to our production staff, Mitch Anderson and Vanessa. We are out.
The Tom Matt Show is produced by Mitch Anderson of Black Circle Studios. Original music from The Source of Light and Power by The Ark of All.